What's happening? Welcome to the first season of Apples and Snakes, the podcast. I'm your host, Yomi Sode. And this season, we will be focusing on what it means to be Black, British, and a poet or spoken word artist. If you're interested in getting a greater insight into the journeys of some of your faves, then join us and keep listening. Saying that, if you do like what you're hearing, remember to subscribe wherever you would usually listen to your podcast and rate us and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Today, I'm talking to Ayikwei Parks and Caleb Femi. We'll be exploring the world of publishing and how it impacts Black British creatives. Hope you enjoy. I know I did. Hey! What is happening? I pretty much spoke to the good folks that kindly suggested me to do this. I'm like, nah, this isn't a podcast and stuff. I'm happy to just listen to this gig and everything. Me being part of it, I'm like, nah, I've never put myself in a position to be here. And yet, here I am. Do you know what I mean? Here I am. I know for the most part, Caleb's like, yeah, I can just hear you on a podcast. I'm like, nah, bruv, stop talking your nonsense to say how it's going to be. But here I am. And the thing is, it's a pleasure to be speaking to the breadth of artists that I'm going to be talking to for the best part of this series, and how better to start than to kick off with talking to two people that I feel in the weirdest way have been either a part of my journey or witnessed my journey to some degree, right? And even more weird if I put this in relation to the arts. Caleb, Nee, it's a pleasure to be speaking to you on this cold day, bro. I'm freezing. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm cold. Listen, we're gonna get into it, but I think even before I even ask for you to introduce yourselves, I think I just want to make some more sense in regards to what I'm saying. I feel like early doors when I was entering the open mic, Nee, I know that I saw you on nights like Poetry in Motion. Yeah. And I'm waiting, and them nights were long nights, bro, for my name to be kind of called, and you will call me on and you will hear me. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like you've been in that journey from that point. Yeah. Caleb, you've been about from MCing, or when I was DJing, when I was DJing at the Rockingham in Elephant and Castle, do you know what I mean? And in that exchange of just seeing me DJ, of hearing me MC, and then witnessing you MCing and what have you as well as within youth work and working with young people. You've literally been witnessing my journey since I was like 16, 17 years old. Do you know what I mean? And this is why this is special for me right now, in talking to both of you as established authors. Are you mad? and actually just looking a bit deeper into that and dipping a bit back into that past and looking in the present and looking in the future. And it's a full circle. And I'm just wanting to just kick off and just saying thank you for just being very present and still being very present in my life, and now, like, for the most part, knowing in the life of many other people. So that's how I want to kick this off with the vibes. Do you know what I mean? Next, I would like, if it's possible, do you mind introducing yourself?
You did it though. You just did a sweet intro. This is how I know, like, your levels on, like, being able to just do this is amazing, fam. That was talent there. And then now you want to show us up even more by setting the standard so high. And then you're like, all right, yeah, now you have a go. No, we won't. You've done it.
Bruv, stop your noise. Caleb Femi, do you mind introducing yourself for the masses and for the folks that don't know who you are? Do you know what I mean?
Hello everyone. My name is Caleb Femi, and I am a writer and filmmaker in general.
Just like that. Hey, Mr. Ayikwei Parks, do you mind just telling the massive who you are? And all the stuff.
So I'm Ayikwei Parks, and I am a dreamer. That would summarize everything that I do. So amongst those things, I'm a writer, an editor, producer, curator, done some radio stuff. Yeah. And I like babies, and I'm from Ghana.
Congratulations are in order. In two ways. First off, I believe it's Flipfly's 20th anniversary this year.
Yes.
Oh,
Indeed.
wow.
Congratulations. That is incredible. Absolutely incredible. And we're gonna get more into Flipfly because I'm curious. Like I want to ask, I want to know more about Flipfly. Congratulations are in order, Mr. Caleb Femi, shortlisted the Rathbones Folio Prize.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
2020.
Where are the horns now? Where are the horns?
Where are the horns? Listen, I should have. Listen, and got the horns. Listen, I mean, I am blessed to be in a studio here. Do you know, like Drew's here, engineering and just doing this thing. I feel like I'm surrounded by royalty in this whole situation. We've got Natalie Fiao, who's the producer, doing the Doug Fizzle. Do you know what I mean? Everything in this congratulations and everything needs celebrating and Rathbones Folio Prize 2020 shortlister. It's incredible. It's incredible. And yeah, listen, I want to know why you're shortlisted out in these streets. Do you know what I mean? So do you mind just reading a poem and just kind of just giving these people just seasoning here to just, if they have not experienced it already. Yeah, go for
Okay,
it.
cool. I'm going to read this poem. It's called Honeytrap and Bwoi. What do you know about mercy? The little boy from the ends know it be the last thing you plead when dust settles. What do you know about this story? The full of it. When the single cloud was moving at the pace of wisdom, they called Tasha a set-up chick. But the truth was that the little boy was an arrogant fool. We would need a new set of images to map out what happened. Off ends, caught slipping, 6 ops. But first, tell me what you know about Reebok classics, Dipset, Sovereign Rings, Aquamasters, Flexing. This has nothing to do with nostalgia, but to access the story, you must take yourself back to the last time you heard a scream that didn't signal rain. Out the belly of the little boy, blue with running, with shiny rubber limbs, playing little boy games, the hands of his laughing scream, feeling the walls the way bats converse with the dark world. You know them way there. When the afternoon carried one atomic intent, horny little boy playing horny little games, baking in laughter like he'd be the first to be horny in history, forgetting how he came to be born. You know them way there. Dashing around the estate, trying not to get seen by them eyes that love to snitch. Anyway, the story started with a text. Tasha's your cuz. She's Peng. Give me her number. And maybe Tasha was Peng, or maybe her skin was just light like she was plated in gold. Little boy trying to get up in her panties. Ain't got a clue what to do if he got up in them panties. You know them way there.
Hey. Yeah,
Beautiful,
I need horns.
beautiful.
I feel like I need horns. This is the situation. I need horns. Absolutely beautiful reading. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of you, man.
Thank you, man.
And just the shift in this landscape and all the stuff. I feel the time that we've been provided here to talk is not enough. and also it's so good just to talk to both of you, like, especially within these times that we're living at the moment, because it just feels really refreshing to just like break out of this new normal and just do this and just rap and just talk and just catch up.
I love that poem, you know.
Thank you.
And
Poem is sick.
there's another thing that I love about it, which is actually reflected in all the book, which is to say that you hint at things and don't name them. And you have this line in one of the poems, like, things with names deserve deliverance, right? And for me, that's a metaphor for even the title. It's like poor. They're poor people. They're black people. They're poor. They're brown. Whatever. It's like they don't have individual names, right?
Mm.
And it reminds me of James Baldwin's the title of one of his books, No Name in the Street, which is again that thing is, you know, the title tells you we step out in the street and we're no longer individual. It's like you're a thing, you're a threat, you're a black boy, you're a menace, you're a rhythm, you're a fashion. You know, we become these things without names, and I think that's really beautiful. About, you know, somebody thinking that they're the first person to feel horny, and you know, all of that stuff, and just the not articulating it gives it so much more weight. It's like there's this ballast beneath the surface, and yeah, I really love that energy in the entire book. You know,
Appreciate
and I mean, I think I told you, like, the photography is mad, like how it has its own narrative and it fits in with the work. Really beautiful. There's some killer lines in there, but let's not go into that. Still, let Yomi do his thing.
So-
I've done my penance for that.
Life before publishing, right?
Yeah.
For both of you, life before publishing, was this always the aim? Like, even within, we considering open mics, or I don't even know your journey, so to speak, into poetry, but did you ever think, yeah, man, I'm gonna have a book? I'm definitely gonna have a book at some point in my life. You know, like, yeah, can we talk on that for a bit? Because I know that, like, even when I remember secondary school, I remember the anthologies, I remember reading up on these poems, but I never necessarily thought this would be the art form that I would enter. And thinking back now, I'm thinking, why didn't I think that this would be the world I would enter type thing? Like, why didn't I think that I would have it in me to write this? Shared thought, where were you? Do you remember that point? Was it always an aim of you to publish? How did you feel?
I think I'll let Caleb go with that one first, man.
Do you know what? I didn't think. I don't know. Sometimes there's a thing when you are engrossed in, like, a particular art form, and you're doing it with a sort of short-sightedness that provides freedom. Later on, it might be identified as naivety, but to me, it felt quite free, that I was just writing for my own sake and developing my craft for my own sake. It wasn't necessarily to be able to write a collection or to be able to I don't know, like, be considered for prizes or anything. I think it was just to be a better writer, and that was enough for me. I remember there's a line that Nee dropped the first time I met him, and that line has dictated how I write poetry henceforth. And it said basically each line of a poem should be within itself worth its own merit, worth its own meter. It should stand on its own, as well as be part of the ensemble of the poem. It should be able to be a poem unto itself. And it's just stuff like that just opened up doorways for me to learn how to express myself better, that I kind of was in it for. Do you know what I mean? I don't think we ever talked about, like, you know, in the grand scheme of poetry discussions, Yomi, you and I I think it was much more later on that we started talking about collections and things like that. But it was always just about writing and the sort of enjoyment of that.
Yeah, and I think even on top of that, I'm like, if we're just talking about poems, but we're not talking about books, again, is that something that is a certain conditioning and a mindset?
Yeah.
That we can, again, like, Nee, you can probably attest to this, or in some way, shape, or form, in terms of, like, what's the broader picture, as opposed to just thinking about, I can't wait to rock this open mic next, like, with this next poem that I've got. Like, it's gonna just, if you thought that one was a banger, fam, wait for this one. When the people hear this one, there's gonna. I remember, like, I was watching an interview with Getz, Grandma Artist, and he was talking about one of the one of the biggest mistakes that he felt the grime scene made was they focused too much time on the radio being MCs as opposed to actually focusing on making music and releasing albums. But there was so much energy in what could be the parallels of an open mic in terms of touching the radio every single week or whatever it is with the new 16s, and whether it is as opposed to just saying, all right, let me actually craft a project and let me push that project out. And to some degree was arguing that this might be why some people might consider the decline in grime as a community, or in terms of something that they're all saying grime is dead. But anyway, that's another thing. But in that, Nee, what are your thoughts in regards to that?
I'd say, like, I don't think a book came into my mind until later, but I mean, it did come in at some point. I think so. My journey with poetry is also to do with mastering myself as a human being. So I used to have like the worst temper. You know, I would grab anything to like strike my brother, you know, or anybody that crossed me. And my dad was like, you need to get a handle on this thing. So I used to be in fights in school all the time. So my dad said to me, so we're going to make a deal. If someone annoys you and you want to hit them, I want you to stop. I want you to count to 10. I want you to write something down about it. And if you still want to hit them, you have my full support. So that's how I started writing stuff. And at some point, I showed this stuff to my dad. I must have been about 9. And he says, oh, you're writing poetry. So it was the first time I had a name for it. But beyond that, it's just about, it just became, I really enjoyed playing with the words and expressing and playing with the languages that I had. So I grew up bilingual. I was born in England, but my parents raised me speaking Ga. So I always had, and so there's always like these jokes that come between what something sounds like in one language, right? You know, versus the other and stuff like that. So you get lots of wordplay. And that's basically how it began. I started to keep stuff, but it was never like, I am going to publish. Actually, in secondary school, it became a thing of, this boy can drop lines, so we will pay him to write love letters for us. That type of thing, right? So I probably made more money from writing in them days than I have since. Because, so I wrote love letters for people. So it was probably like what Caleb's saying. It's about the refinement of the ability to express yourself. That's what it was. And then I wrote songs, you know, just little songs that I would, you know, sing to myself, and my older brother and I would just mess about. So if anything, if I thought I was going to do anything creative, it was probably more thinking that I was going to write songs. It's weird because when I was offered a record deal, I just was like, I don't know if this is right for me. So I had to confront it to know that wasn't the thing. And then the whole book thing. I toured, I did spoken word, I did, you know, CDs, that whole thing. But the book was not the thing until I think the opportunity came to record, and I'm like, you know what, I want to do a book. I don't feel like this is, especially the angle at which the conversation came. I just realized that this industry could drag you into a place where you don't want to be. And that's when I really realized that I wanted to express myself in my own way. And that timing and that the industry was not right for it. So that's how the book came along.
Music, oddly, is something that has traveled with all of us. My last set was in 2013 at Wireless Festival. I got booked via Live Nation to do Wireless. It was the biggest gig to date with the band. And a week after that gig, I said, I'm not making music no more. I've stopped making music. And they looked at me like they wanted, listen, if looks could kill, they looked at me like, have you lost your mind? Like we've just bagged like a really good gig. Like it's only going to get better from this point. But oddly enough, I felt like I was letting my writing down. I felt like I was like really simplifying my writing to make it fit to song, you know? And I wanted better for my writing. I wanted to kind of craft a bit more and learn a bit more. So I stripped it completely. And I haven't looked back. I miss music. I miss making music. I totally miss making music. But it was so formulaic for me that I felt like I needed to do more in terms of this. And then there was just this intrigue to just write more and write better and not write songs, so to speak. But so it's good to hear your relationship with music. And Caleb, I know that you definitely made songs as well. Like, you know, like the release of Slog was insane. I still have it in my playlist. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a vibe, and we're gonna get into visuals in a minute. And speaking on journeys, Flipfly 20th anniversary. If you could summarize that in terms of how it came to being and how, do you know, like the on socials when they have the split screens, what was it, how it started, how it's going? Do you know what I mean? Like it's if you could if you could split screen that type of thing, if you could summarize that in how it started and how it's going, how could you? Yeah, go for it, man.
So I mean, I think Flipfly started like a lot of things in my life, and I think it's to do with, you know, the kind of upbringing you generally get in West African households. It's like, if there's a problem, why are you coming back to me? Go and solve it, type of thing, right? So I was on the scene. I could see that the people whose work I appreciated didn't have books and stuff. So I thought, you know what, let me start a magazine. Started a magazine. We were doing interviews, publishing poems, short stories. I mean, so like I got Ino Ellams to interview Saul Williams because I knew he really admired him, you know, so for one issue, that type of thing. So, but magazines take a lot of work. And so in the end, I was just like, you know, I can't keep doing it. But there were a couple of people who had more work, and I'm like, oh, let me try and do a collection. I think as much as I say I walked away from music, I'm inspired by music a lot. The music industry has a kind of model in which people can start small labels and stuff like that. They don't feel like they have to, you know, have a huge amount of stuff to start. And that was the energy. I was like, okay, we're going to start this. We're going to sell books at gigs, just like they sell music at gigs, right? And much of Flipfly sales in the first 5 years was probably just gigs. We would do gigs and we would sell books. And sometimes I'd meet other publishers and tell them how many books we sold at a gig. They'll be like, really? That's not possible. But we were doing that because we were working with people who were comfortable kind of, you know, sharing their work in public and engaging and not trying to be obscure and stuff like that. So I think there's an element of the aesthetic. But as to get into 20 years, it just kind of happened. I blinked and I was there.
Bro, you can't just say, how do you just say it can just happen?
So around 2008, I was exhausted. And I was about to quit. But there were two people that I had edited that I felt like these people have some amazing. And so I'm just going to reach out. I'm just going to be like, yo, do you feel like editing poetry? So that was Jacob Samler-Rose and Nala Sullivan. And I just said to them, guys, if you want to edit poetry, whatever, I'll work something out. We'll pay for some training and I, you know, we'll mentor through the process. And yeah, so if those guys hadn't come on board, I probably would have quit around then.
Wow.
Because the work becomes a lot. The thing that's really heartbreaking, and it always makes me cry when I talk about it, is when you start something like Flipfly, the manuscripts are coming in and you can't work on all of them. And you can see that there are people sending you manuscripts because the industry has ignored them for so long that this is the only place they can send it. And you're having to say no to people who you think are good.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. Like, that was the thing that was breaking me. I was like, do you know what? I need to step back. I need to find other ways of structuring. And and them coming on board was great. And yeah, I mean, now edited Janet Plummer. Her pamphlet was the first full book he edited. First thing we edited was an anthology called Flight, which was Spread the Word. We did with Spread the Word. And that was part of the training for Jacob and Niall. And even from that, you know, like the people that have come out of that anthology, you know, like Dean Atta and Irenosen, you know, just like to have that was the first project that they worked on. And then the first book now edited was Janet Plummer's Life Marks, which is fire. It's now in the Mouth Mark Book of Poetry. And the first book that Jacob edited was Wassan Shiri's Teaching My Mother How to Give Birth.
Which was the first Fliptide book that I read.
Yeah.
Okay,
Actually, it was mine as well.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was mine as well, to be fair.
So Wassan's book was the last in the Mouth Mark series, which, I started specifically because I'm going to work with people who are doing stuff on stage. Maybe they might be nervous about how do I get this on the page. Some people needed a bit more time than others. And the first person I worked with on that series was Nick Makoha. And Nick will tell you the number of coffees we had just sitting down and be like, what are you trying to do? Because we are not putting this book out if I'm going to tell you what you're doing. You need to understand what you want to do. And that is the journey, I think, also that is behind our success in Unearthing New Talent. Because we want to know what you want to do. We're not going to tell you this. I mean, you can make, like I just said at the beginning, when we were talking, you can make tidy poems. That's cool. But somebody has to know how they're coming. You can't go into a boxing ring copying somebody else's left hook. You got to come with your own energy, your own stance, right? So that's it. And we've made it 20 years just by being unorthodox.
There's a few things you're raising from there as well in terms of big up Niall Sullivan as well. Definitely. I haven't had the pleasure of just meeting now, face to face. We've had interactions online, but it hasn't. So I look forward to that day. But I raise that because even hearing you talk, you're mentioning Niall, you're mentioning Jacob, you're mentioning Nick, and this support bubble for the most part that are kind of but by your side in your own journey. Caleb, in regards to Poor, patience has been
the key word.
Patience has been the key word, my bro. So much so that you're like, listen, let me just release some music while I wait. Do you know what I mean? Let me just release some music while I wait. And in a way, I'm living vicariously between yourself and me to a certain degree, because I look forward to the day that my collection is published. But what I am not looking forward to is this wait, rude boy. I'm like, how long am I waiting for this thing to come out? Timing is everything. So taking from Nee in regards to the support system, and also taking from Nee the amount of people that are submitting manuscripts, because there's just no one else is taking manuscripts, which is something I'm going to get onto later. What were your thoughts in regards to just how Poor would be taken, and what the journey of Poor as a whole? What was that like for you? I don't think we ever touched on it, to be fair. I don't know, man.
Poor took a long time, as a lot of people know. It took a long time to come out for one reason or the other. It took about it was delayed by 2 years, which in hindsight, I'm actually quite happy about. Maybe not 2 years. Maybe that was just a year that I thought it was going to come out. And then I thought it would come out in 2019. And then it didn't, and it came out at the end of 2020. So kind of 2 years, in that way. But I think it was frustrating because there's an anxiety that gets built up. You don't know what to expect. It's a new process for you. You don't know that. There was times where I doubted myself, maybe it's the reason why it's being delayed is because it's not. Where it's supposed to be, or maybe just the universe is just conspiring to make sure that this doesn't happen.
Trying to let the black man
exactly
trying to shut us down. What are you mad?
It was an exercise in patience for sure, and understanding that the work that we make shouldn't feel like it's time sensitive anyway. The work that we make should feel timeless and should feel like whenever it comes out, it's still supposed to, have a particular effect on readers regardless, So So yeah, support wise, I guess it was just speaking to people and people maintaining the anticipation and the excitement even when that had died within me. That was something that really helped keep me going in that way.
Wow.
Reading other people's work, people who had work like come out that I thought was like super exciting, was also like a thing that sort of allowed me to and I'll be frank, there was times where like I would read a book that had just come out, a collection, and I would be like, oh, I'm actually glad that this has come out and mine hasn't come out, because if I had a collection out, I would feel I would have to, like, for example, when this collection came out, I couldn't read everything. I could only read a limited amount of like collections. I think I only read I read Inua's, I read Nee's, I read Sean Hewitt's, and like two others, but usually I would read everything that has come out. I want to know. So yeah, in a way, it kind of like just allowed me to just read as much as I can and enjoy it, and sort of the anxiety was just something that I just had to deal with. And there was the distraction of lockdown as well, where like I thought, okay, cool, so we're all being delayed right now, so it kind of made it easier.
You both touched on, and I don't know if there's room for it, I would really want to explore this form of the dying in. So it just stopped. There's like a point where there's just like an absolute standstill. And if it's not the support mechanisms around you, then at some point you're going to have to get back on and just keep moving and keep pushing. I wonder, because both of you are like kind of in this kind of it doesn't just sit as poems. Caleb introduced himself as filmmaker, and bro, you make sick films. It's for a reason. Do you know what I mean? Nee, photography. Do you know what I mean? Like your even some of your, I know in relation to your recent collection as well. Like, boy, he's trying to take the sexy pics out in these streets. Like I saw that guy. I'd be seeing.
The streets burning. Get me. And it's good. You have to keep people on their toes. You have to make sure people understand what's going on. What time
it is. I feel like there was a flex that Nee and Roger were trying to just go with online with their portraits. That weren't even, bro. I'm like, are they taking liberties? They might have tried to make me what?
Nee, I know your DMs are flooded right now. Absolutely. Just had to really just show the community who the real rock stars are.
This is it. Is the cross arts of photography and visuals, are they as integral to just your state of being as your poems are? Like, Poor has a mix of photography in there. Nee, you've spoken about visuals, and they it seems like there's a conversation to be had. Just generally. So is it something that is important to you, and is it something that you both feel like you want to see more of in the future from authors, or or authors being more daring, should I say? Like, yeah, go for it.
I mean, I think authors should express themselves as fully as they can. That's basically it. The medium doesn't really matter. It's like, are you being your full self, or are you curating yourself to fit what you think the world wants to receive? And I think if you do that, you're impoverishing both yourself and the world that consumes your art. And so it's about having that, and it's about having that confidence to be yourself fully. I think that's it. That means that you will clash with the industry, because the industry tends to like its standards, its standard boxes that it wants to fit people in. So if you're doing a book, I'm sure Caleb will have something to say about how perhaps when he sent the manuscript with photographs, the initial response would have been. But so it's understanding that you will have to fight battles if you want to express yourself in that way. But be prepared to do it, you know? So I mean, I was having discussions with People Tree about, you know, just about how to adjust the darkness of the cover image, you know, because I'm like, I took this photograph and this is how I see it.
Yeah.
So you might do it this way because you're trying to illuminate something, but I'm trying to create like a gap between what can be seen and what can't be seen, which is to reflect a larger kind of narrative and metaphor about the collection, which is about, you know, what you see, what you don't see type of thing, right?
And which inherently is what we're trying to do as poets anyway.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, so you know, there's that. I think it's just the confidence to express yourself.
All right, folks, we've reached the end of part 1 of this conversation. Join us for part 2 in the next episode of Apples and Snakes, the podcast. I've been your host, Yomi Sode, and I hope you've enjoyed today's deep dive into the lives of Black British poets and creatives. Big ups to audio producer Drew Hawley at the Lab Studios. If you want to find out more about Apples and Snakes, head over to www.applesandsnakes.org and follow Apples and Snakes on all social media channels. And remember, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe wherever you would usually listen to your podcast and rate us and leave a review on Apple Podcasts.